Does it feel like things are getting crazy lately? Environmental disasters, UFOs flying across the sky? Feels like the end of days sometimes, doesn't it? Well, in times like these, maybe it's best to look back to the past to see what we can learn. Let's take a look at some of the scariest Nostradamus predictions we hope aren't true. This is the top 5 Nostradamus predictions that prove the end of the world is near. Nostradamus. Was he an eerie visionary of futures yet to pass, or just a crazy old man who wrote a bunch of vague statements? Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Number 5. War. What is it good for? 7 months the Great War. People dead of evil doing. Ruin ever shall not fall to the king. Now, if you've watched any of our previous videos on Nostradamus and other end of the world prediction style videos, you know that Nostradamus and the other seers tended to keep their predictions pretty vague, but sometimes they spelled it out simple enough that even a simpleton like me can follow along. Nostradamus is predicting a big war. A great war, even. In size, not in quality. I don't think there was ever a great war. If the quatrain is anything to go off of, Nostradamus predicts that the war will erupt across Europe and then ravage the countryside, while hopefully keeping the city of Rouen, France, in a good spot, and will refuse to fall to the king. Now that part is open to a little bit of interpretation, because really that could mean anything. Who could the king be referring to? Is it one particular world leader? One nation vying for power? Is it the Burger King mascot who's finally snapped and is on a warpath of world domination? He's easily the most unhinged and dangerous of all fast food mascots, and the one I would most expect to start a war. Now, this is obviously a delicate subject, but the current situations across Eastern Europe is already cause for enough alarm. A war that's got everybody on their toes and watching the news constantly. And I don't think anyone wants to see it develop further into a proverbial Great War. A 7-month Great War sounds like it'd be over in a flash, but I think the last thing anyone wants is a war that's over in a flash, knowing the nuclear-powered arsenals out there. Shorter war is not necessarily a good thing. Nuclear annihilation is kind of the last thing anybody needs out there. Hey, hope I'm not bumming you out too much, talking about global conflicts and possibly the end of the world. Let's talk about something fun, like our fun channel. We got all sorts of scary content of just about any topic you can think of. So click through, stay scared, but stay watching this video, because we got a whole lot more predictions left to go. Number 4, Mars and Elon Musk. Listen to this quatrain. The two contenders will unite together. When most others unite with Mars, the African leader is fearful and trembles. The dual alliance is separated by the fleet. This one seems too perfect, you know? Immediately as I read that quatrain, maybe you made the same connection too. Mars, African leader. Immediately coming to my mind is Elon Musk, the South African billionaire tycoon who currently owns Twitter and has been extremely outspoken about his desire to flee this planet and to become the king and colonize the red planet of Mars. But who are these two contenders that have to unite together? Could it be referring to global superpowers coming together for the future of humanity? Or is it Facebook and Twitter coming together and he's just looking to buy more social medias? Some professional followers of Nostradamus' work, such as Lori Reading, has argued in favor of this as well, arguing that this is referring to the billionaire's plans for galactic domination. Another quatrain seems almost connected with this line from another verse. Take a listen. The light of Mars shall go out. Could this be again a reference to the mission? A suggestion that perhaps this dream of Mars is just that, a foolish dream, and that a colony on Mars would fail in upon itself. It also links up bizarrely well with the Opportunity rover. If you remember that from a few years back, the little guy who was rolling around the surface of Mars, its last transmission was, "My battery is fading and I'm going dark," which is almost like directly saying a light of Mars is going out. This is actually starting to creep me out here. Nostradamus might have been magic just a little bit. Time will tell, obviously, if this one remains to be true, although after Twitter, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I don't know if I want to pay $8 a month to subscribe to Mars Blue for a checkmark. Number 3, more plague. Oh, that's the last thing any of us need. Well, take a listen to this doom prophecy. Near the gates and within 2 cities, there will be 2 scourges, the likes of which has never seen. Famine within plague, people put out by steel, crying to the great immortal God for relief. Well, this doesn't sound fun at all. I'm not sure anybody wants this. I'm pretty sure everyone watching this has experienced more than enough plagues to last us a lifetime. Of course, it's unfortunately kind of foolhardy to think that humanity will never experience another viral epidemic because, well, germs are always going to exist unless we eradicate them entirely. So all we can do is brace ourselves for the next one and hopefully learn from the past. I mean, that's why we're looking all the way back to an old French astronomer who was writing things in the 15th century, and the off chance that any of it might help us out. Well, he might be on the money with this one again, because recently in 2021, researchers in Siberia uncovered in a block of ice 33 strains of ancient novel viruses. Now, novel means that they haven't been discovered before, not that they're just kind of fun and no trivia. Personally, I would put them back in the iceberg, I think, and then I would put like a tarp or maybe some tape over it. I think we should just deal with that where it is, and we should not be bringing any ancient prehistoric viruses into today's times. I think I'm good. Now, what really concerns me about this quatrain is the picture that it paints. Near the gates and within 2 cities, the people will be put out by steel, crying to the great immortal god for relief. Oh, that's dramatic. Could this be a reference to some power taking out its own citizens? Armies firing at infected individuals? Now, it could be that, but it could also be possible that Nostradamus somehow had a powerful vision into the future, and he was just watching an episode of The Last of Us, and he was basing his predictions around that. Good on him for not spoiling that series for 500 years. Number 2, economic crisis. Take a listen to this. No abbots, monks, no novices to learn. Honey shall cost far more than candle wax. So high the price of wheat that man is stirred to eat his fellow man in despair. Now, I'm not an economist. I'm a YouTuber, sort of. But I don't need to be an economist to tell you that things have been getting pretty expensive, and everyone's feeling their purse strings tighten up. I can't tell you how many times this week I've had pasta with no sauce for dinner. Admittedly, I don't buy a ton of honey or candle wax, so I can't really comment on how accurate that all is, but I can definitely tell you that my weekly groceries are getting a lot more expensive. The fear, of course, here is that I think eating your fellow man in despair really does not sound like the good option. Now, there are a couple different ways we could take this interpretation. We could take it very literally, suggesting that things are going to get so dire and so bad that we'll have so little food to go around that we're forced to consume one another to survive, which really doesn't sound pleasant. And while I'm talking, I'd just like to throw out here, I am way too stringy to be valuable as meat. I mean, look at me, I'm like a bird, I'm hollow, so I wouldn't make a good meal out of me at all, so don't even bother trying over here. Alternatively, it could be interpreted in a more esoteric way. And since he's an old astronomer, I'm sure he spoke esoterically most of the time. He could be referring to the idea of eating the rich. If people get so fed up with the costs of living on just about everything and decide to revolt and strike back at the people in charge, hoping to dismantle the systems in place, which, hey, funny enough, actually leads into a segue for my next point really well. It's almost like I set that up. Number 1, great discord. Take a listen. The trumpet shakes with great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven. The bloody mouth will swim with blood. The face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground. Like most of Nostradamus' writings, this one does sound a bit like it's the opening monologue to one of the Lord of the Rings movies, and wow, honey again. Honey was like a really serious cause of concern for this guy. I think he might not have been an astronomer. He might just have been a man who took his morning tea incredibly seriously. So besides crying over spilled milk and honey, what do our great Nostradamus experts have to say about this one? Was Nostradamus banned from his Discord server and writing against the tyrannical mods? Well, like all of the ones on this list, this unnerving prediction seems to suggest that dire violence will come to plague us, with unrest between the masses and classes leading to full-scale rebellion and riots. This little ditty seems to support that, with Nostradamus writing that sooner and later you will see great changes made, dreadful horrors and vengeances. Well, I support great changes, definitely. I'm a huge fan of great changes, but I am not so sure about dreadful horrors and vengeances. I feel like I've seen more than enough of those. The last few years have seen more civil unrest than ever. Like, this is the most upset I've seen people in my life, at least. With it seeming like that somewhere around the world there's a mass-scale protest or riot every couple of weeks. You know, it's easy to flick on the news and you see that and wonder if eventually we're gonna hit a boiling point and we'll see some of those horrifying horrors and vengeances and all those mal plots that he was thinking up. And when it does, if we'll see some serious changes.